On a motorbike headed from Akar to Kadapakam in Nagapattinam, India, we are waiting for the slow to pay to pass before we enter the southernmost village chosen for the AdaptCat pilot project. 18 villages were chosen through a locally conducted vulnerability assessment in 2011. The villages were chosen because they needed help alleviating the symptoms of accelerated climate change, which are destroying the residents' livelihoods. In early 2012, project preparation is nearly complete. Community members from all the villages have met with local NGOs and experts to co-create 3 project options that would help them adapt to climate change phenomena such as stronger cyclones, off-season flash floods, encroaching salinity, skipped monsoons, changing disease vectors, loss of fisheries, and other compounding climate change hardship. GIZ and Adelphi help fund and organize these rural projects with village community associations, women's self-help groups, and respected local NGOs. Thanks to AdaptCat, thousands of people in 18 villages, which have been declining along with the natural systems on which they depend, will see improvements in their communities this year. The most important characteristic of these improvements is water. Most of the villages receive some kind of pumped water to overhead tanks, such as this one, and yet most do not feel that their basic fresh water needs are met when wells such as this are contaminated or run dry in summer. State and local governments are charged with providing at least 40 liters of water per person per day from the panchayat booster pumping stations or bore wells to the village tanks. In some instances, their drinking water sources are contaminated by bacteria, salt, metals, or silt. On top of that, maintenance issues such as broken pipes and taps to get water faster during the 1 or 2 hours per day that it is available ensures that water is always scarce. Villagers overwhelmingly cite access to drinking water as the #1 priority of their community. And since climate change is likely to make rain fall with more volume during shorter periods of time, fresh groundwater is likely to be increasingly scarce. This is already resulting in villagers drinking water from unhealthy sources and contracting waterborne diseases. AdaptCat projects include filtration devices to make local water sources drinkable. In villages near Vishakhapatnam, piped water is contaminated with bacteria where it enters the infiltration well, from which 8 communities draw drinking water. Project partners are identifying point source pollution, filtering the water through sand filters, and working in the villages to make sure that changes and new appropriate use of the piped water is understood. In Mother Teresa colony, the residents have been drinking waste agriculture canal water. The AdaptCat project will filter the water and pump it to the overhead tank via solar pump to provide the village's first clean water source. Domestic water for bathing, cleaning, and other uses can come from shallow dug wells, which dry up in the summer and need replenished groundwater sources to refill. Here, Prabha of the Vaya Village Welfare Society explains the need for fresh water catchment in this pond near the coast. Village wells are usually fed by ponds or other domestic water sources like canals. Preventing saltwater encroachment preserves the fresh groundwater, replenishing dug wells, bore wells, and irrigation canals. AdaptCat projects arrest saltwater encroachment by building protective bunds and shutters. As this local farmer explains, Kadapakam, the southernmost village at the end of a small road next to the Indian Ocean, needs to keep salt water from flooding its crops and contaminating its groundwater supply. As you can see, the village agricultural fields are very close to the coast. This small raised road, the only separation of the paddy, black gram, and groundnut from storm surges. The increasing extreme weather and floods over the past years are bankrupting the village and driving farmers from their land. Every stakeholder has agreed that the community needs to build a bund or embankment around their agricultural fields. The AdaptCat partner NGO plans to break ground on the 1.5 kilometer long bund in mid-2012. Similar bunds were requested along coastlines and backwater to prevent backwater and coastal flooding in 5 other village sites, around ponds, fishing village homes, and agricultural fields. Promoting better agricultural production is another way in which ADAPT-CAP is helping rural communities to survive the changing climate. Here, village leaders of Pillai Colony lead us into their kitchen garden, which grows watermelon, corn, beans, mangoes, and other foodstuffs for the community. They water these crops from this tiny pond and village wastewater. In order to expand their garden, they need to secure other water sources and irrigate. In Nalor, ADAPT-CAP is providing a sprinkler irrigation system to conserve water and improve the economy of a vulnerable community that survives through floriculture and horticulture. In Cuddalore, project partners work with the head of the regional agricultural department to expand irrigation canals and keep them from becoming salinated. To adapt and compete in a changing climate, villagers need more effective means to get the water to their crops than traditional methods such as this can provide. Water is the most important commodity in the adaptation of rural India to a changing climate, but vibrant and creative communities are at the heart of the projects. Here in Nalor, representatives from GIZ, Adelphi, and 2 local NGOs participate in the meeting of village representatives who share their opinions and ideas, prioritizing possible adaptation projects. On a limited budget, they are faced with tough choices between lighting, sanitation, drinking water, and disaster-proof structures. Villagers here are choosing which project they need the most.
మీరు 2 గ్రామాలు కలిపి బ్రిడ్జ్ వేసుకోండి ఇక్కడ అలాగే షెడ్ 1 రూపీ ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఆల్ ప్యాకేజ్ మిషన్ పెట్టామంటే నీరు చాలా లాగుతాం మరి అంత నీరు లాగినప్పుడు వీలవుతుందా అసలు నీరు ఉంటుందా ఇబ్బంది లేకుండా
daily 3 o'clock only they are distribute water. They maintain some timing.
The open communication, excellent facilitation, and months of groundwork laid by local NGOs in co-creating these projects with villages allows community leaders and village gathering to make quick and unanimous decisions. They know that they are being heard by the funders and the NGO project implementers. The villages offer to contribute labor. Other local groups pitch in extra funding or equipment for implementation. Without this buy-in and ownership from everyone affected by the project, ADAPT-CAP would be ineffective and unsustainable. The people at the heart of the projects know what is needed to give their children a future despite the threats to rural life. ADAPT-CAP can give a few villages the means to sustain that future. ADAPT-CAP projects can give the international community the data to scale up these types of programs for climate change adaptation, mitigation, and disaster response.